To be selected for my class to come and see it. It's a great honour.
Was there a lot of competition?
Yeah, everyone was looking in to try and get, I mean, it's the president, who doesn't want to see them?
And the next stage in the education world is university. Tell me where you're from.
I'm Cleona McCartney. I'm from Queen's University, Belfast, so it's fantastic to be here. I am president of the Politics Society Queen's, so it's great to be here with our members who are looking to become as politicised as possible, and it's great to see such a big figure as Obama who's, you know, coming. There's so many young people here, and it's great to see young people being taken seriously in terms of the political process.
If you got a chance to speak to him, what would be your main message?
I think I would say thank you. Thank you, you know, on behalf of my generation, for America have played a huge role in the peace process in terms of Northern Ireland, you know, the Clintons and the Kennedys, and now I'm glad that Obama has continued that support through his presidency, and I think it's great to see him here, and I'm delighted to be here.
Some more early birds are from Lurgan College, is that right? What's your name?
Yeah, Laura King. So it's just great to be here. Can't believe we've gotten the chance, and can't believe Obama's taken the time to see us and speak to us today.
You and your colleague here, you got a free pass because you're head girl and head boy?
Yeah. Thought it was a big enough honour to get head girl and head boy, but to get here representing the school is just one of a kind. Like.
Very good. I'd just like to say it's a great thing for Northern Ireland to have the G8 actually here. You know, it shows a lot of confidence in how far we've come, and at the end of the day Northern Ireland is moving forward and will continue to move forward, especially with our generation. We're interested in moving forward, so it is a good event, and it'll be great to see the President this morning.
So yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what he said, and you know, I think this is going to make a bigger impact than anybody can imagine, so cannot wait to see him.
Well, good luck and congratulations being such early birds, and I hope you enjoy the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you
so much. Thank you.
And there's one young person in particular, 16-year-old Hannah Nelson, who is going to be introducing Michelle Obama onto the stage before President Barack Obama makes his speech. So a big day for her, and we'll hopefully be hearing from her later in the programme. But let's hear now from Professor Rick Wilford. And Rick, put this into some sort of context for us in terms of previous presidential visits.
Well, this is the third visit by a serving president. Of course, he's preceded by Clinton, who was here twice as president, and then once after he finished his presidency in 2000. Then George Bush, 2 fleeting visits during his tenure. So he's the sixth visit in effect by a president. And I think the 2 previous presidents have been very concerned in different contexts and for different reasons to get the political show, as they were initially on the road, then back on the road. That was Clinton, of course, and then back on the road when Bush was president, and he was in the White House, of course, at the time of the St Andrews Agreement. And although he was much less hands-on than Clinton, it was his administration that, as it were, created a helpful context which led to St Andrews. So getting it on the road, getting it back on the road, and now Obama is here to try and keep, as it were, the momentum going, I think, over the next period. He's got no electoral dividend himself, of course, by this visit, because he's in his second and final term. So I think it's probably a favour in part to the UK government because we're hosting the G8, but it's also, I think, significant because we've had this new economic pact that was announced between the UK government and the executive on Friday last, which, among other things, creates assisted area status. And I think because North America, and particularly the United States, is so important as a source of foreign investment in the Northern Ireland economy, I think in that respect, coming on the back of that pact, I think this is going to give this kind of shove. And as you said, Tara, before, you know, the fact that there are so many young people here this morning, school children from right across the province, plus he's accompanied by his 2 daughters. I think we're going to get a message about, you know, you need, to the politicians that is, you need to get this on the road, you need to keep it on the road, you need to give it momentum, because, you know, you've got a younger generation here full of anticipation and hope for the future. Not least, of course, his own daughters, and I think that's going to be the message. So it is a kind of nudge in the back of our politicians to make sure, you know, that there are no obvious obstacles in the path towards Northern Ireland becoming a society which is at ease with itself and whose economy, hopefully, will be able to develop and create opportunities, employment opportunities for the younger generation.
And when it comes to the choreography of all of this, obviously from St Patrick's Day, from the comments he made in the White House that day, to the Downing Street on Friday, it's all been sort of carefully put in place.
Oh yeah, there is nothing left to chance with visits like this. Everything is carefully pre-planned. Whatever the speech that Obama is going to make, whatever the content, that will have been made clear to the UK government, to our own First and Deputy First Minister, and presumably the other ministers. But I think Obama's speech back on St. Patrick's Day in March, where he effectively used a form of words which was diplomatically sort of banging heads together and saying to the First and Deputy First Minister in particular, you need to make progress on a shared future. And I think it's no accident, actually, that the shared future document came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The economic pact has come on the back of that. And I think Obama has been instrumental in encouraging, as it were, and fostering progress on that front. And so, yes, it will be carefully choreographed. There aren't going to be many, as it were, off-message messages in the course of the speech, but it's going to give the current context, the current policy developments a fair wind in order, as it were, to further encourage the politicians along this path towards a shared future. And I think that's where Obama has a particular role, in addition to that of trying to help sell Northern Ireland as a place for foreign direct investment. And North America is really important as a source of investment for our economy.
And when it comes to looking back at the other visits, I suppose there was obviously the pop star status that Bill Clinton has, and I suppose Barack Obama and his wife and his daughters have that sense as well. There is certainly a buzz from the young people that I spoke to this morning, really excited about seeing them.
Absolutely. I mean, Clinton came in '95, came in '98, and if you remember, that was a time when we had the enormity of the Omagh bomb, and he and his wife, visited Omagh and saw the devastation that had been wreaked in that context. He had a very familiar style, Bill Clinton, and he sort of rubbed along. I think there's a view that Obama perhaps is a loftier figure, because he's much more, if you like, of an intellectual. I mean, he taught law at Chicago for 12 years before he became an active politician. But the fact that the youngsters are coming, yeah, I think, is a real joy. I no doubt there are many young people who are going to take fashion tips from what the two Obama daughters are. That's not my, field of expertise.
We'll be asking you about that shortly.
But it's just the fact that he's brought the family, although they, of course, Michelle and the two children won't be at Inniskillen. I think they're off to Dublin later today.
Yes, yeah.
But nevertheless, the fact that they're here, yeah, I think, is going to add, to that message that this is about the future. This is, and it's kind of symbolic.
And we can see some of those pictures at the minute of the young people just waiting very patiently. They were all in there from 8:30.
Well, it's exciting for everyone. It's particularly exciting, I think, for school children, some of whom no doubt will be studying politics, and they'll be interested, whether it's Northern Ireland politics or international politics. They'll be interested for that reason. But American presidents have celebrity status. Some carry that burden much more likely than others. I mean, I think George Bush struggled with it for a variety of reasons, which I don't think we need to go into. But Clinton and Obama had and have star appeal. And I think the fact that he's made this decision to come prior to the G8 discussions, I think is really important, actually, for the kind of optics and for the symbolism that it conveys. I mean, this is the most powerful man in the world. The nuclear trigger will be accompanying him, as it were, during his stay. Northern Ireland, I suspect, though, in itself is not going to be at all, significantly on the agenda when the G8 ministers come together.
Of course,
in Inniskillen.
Really,
there are a lot of other issues, and Syria is a particular difficulty. I mean, the Russians and the Americans have really...
The early start affected that student,
obviously. I know. Well, they should have had a cup of BBC coffee. That would have woken them up.
I think it's interesting, though. I mean, you mentioned the politics students, and a lot of the students I spoke to, a lot of them from integrated schools, a lot of them the head boy and the head girl. Other people picked at random, but lots of politics students. But are you surprised by perhaps the lack of protest, if you like, among young people against the G8? And some of are we looking inward in Northern Ireland rather than on a global stage that you get with so many other movements across the world at the minute?
Well, there are all kinds of protests. The people who are sort of exercised by G8, not just because it's in Northern Ireland, but G8 in general, it encompasses such a wide range of organisations. People who are concerned with tackling hunger and poverty and health issues, malnutrition. There are others who are kind of anti-system, for ideological reasons. But a lot of young people are involved in the sort of NGOs, voluntary, charitable organisations that are involved in delivering, as it were, services to those abroad who are in, real difficulty in terms of deprivation and hunger and so on. But the mood now is, if it's not the fact that there were relatively few people turned out to the rally on Saturday, I think it's probably partly explicable by the weather.
Yes.
But it's also the context in which people are, so many people are struggling now, in the context of austerity and so on. I doubt that they're expecting great things from the G8 in terms of turning us around. Actually, that responsibility is down to us now. We've got additional levers given the pact that was announced on Friday. So it's entirely up to the Northern Ireland Executive and the people here to tackle the kind of underlying structural weaknesses of the Northern Ireland economy. But that's, Bill Clinton famously said, during his first presidential campaign, it's the economy, stupid. But it is the economy for us. There's such a high level of unemployment and economic inactivity. That will, as it were, depress youngsters' expectations, and the risk for Northern Ireland is that we export a lot of our human capital because of the lack of employment opportunities. The part of the package that was announced by McGuinness and Robinson about, the 10,000 internship places, which is fine in and of itself.
Okay.
But will there be 10,000 jobs?
Yes, that's the key question, isn't it?
So that those people can move on to. That's the issue.
Rick, we'll leave it there for the minute, but stay with us for later in the programme. And Noel, it's back to you.
Thank you. We'll just stay with the pictures at the waterfront hall. Apparently 6 pupils invited from each of the schools and something like 1,500 kids there. Big day for them, of course. Just a quick word of apology to the Lord Lieutenant of County Antrim, Joan Christie. It was she who greeted the Obamas as they walked down from the plane. I didn't recognise her. There goes my knighthood. President Obama will meet the Prime Minister David Cameron in Fermanagh later. The Prime Minister arrived in Belfast last night. He, of course, is the host of the G8 summit, and he's been speaking in Fermanagh this morning about what's on the agenda.
Well, I'm delighted to welcome world leaders here to Northern Ireland for this G8 summit. And the agenda we have is one that is about helping the world to grow together, both the developing countries but also the developed countries too. And we've seized on 3 particular areas that can make a real difference to hard-working families around the world. Making sure we have more trade deals so we keep prices down, making sure we have greater transparency so we can help developing countries get the tax and the revenue that they need, and this issue of taxation, making sure we crack down on tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance, so right across the world countries get the tax revenue need to keep taxes down for hard-working people and to make sure we can have good health and education systems for all our people. That's what this G8 is about. It's a very strong agenda, and I look forward to welcoming everyone here to Northern Ireland to discuss these and of course other issues too.
Big issues indeed. Fionnuala O'Connor, the commentator, is with me still. Fionnuala, just talking about tax there, I mean, they had the dependencies and territories in for a chat, the Cayman Islands and all those tax havens, and they've all said, yeah, well, okay with us.
Well, Cameron had to have something like that to present, didn't he? There are apparently more British tax havens in the world than belong to any other country. So to get them together and have them say, yes, of course, we'll be more transparent, we'll be more regulated, doesn't really mean anything. But it's the sort of thing that, it's the fig leaf that David Cameron had to bring into a meeting like this, where nobody really intends to do anything very drastic. It is just a question of presentation.
Has what people might call the Google tax scandal made much of an impression stateside, Catherine?
Well, no. I think the issue, of course, of our being in a brave new world where we're looking at globalization, we're looking at companies moving money, moving people, moving businesses, something that I think my students are much more interested and familiar with. If you speak to them about Starbucks and Google being the bad guys, I think they would have a very different view of it. I find it ironic to talk about taxes. Here we are sort of almost over 200 years later, the British and the Americans having their battles over taxes, which I think started a revolution in 1776. Maybe we're looking to 2016 to be a new tax revolution, because we do have to think about the prosperity of youth around the world, not just in American companies. But Ireland had a special relationship. It was the capital where Google put its technology, put its ideology, and I think Ireland is looked as an economic engine. Remember, in the 20th century, 1 out of every 2 Irish people left the island, and a lot of them ended up in America, and a lot of them started companies, and immigration is the engine Barack Obama looks to reignite the economy.
But we've had Sammy Wilson, the finance minister, of course, now accusing the Republic of stealing our taxes.
Effectively, of being a tax haven. Well, I think that's more DUP presentation, because we have various messages coming at the same time from different DUP members. I think Sammy's little outburst might have more to do with Arlene's brilliant solo runs over the last couple of days, who's starring now in her own romantic movie in Fermanagh. There she is. Did you hear her as well welcoming the people to the G8 to Fermanagh? She said, "Welcome and fair fa you."